Hey Akshat, welcome to this episode of Buildify. And how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks a lot, Yash, for bringing me in here. Really excited for what we have ahead.
Awesome, awesome, great. So, firstly, would request you to give like a short intro or overview about what you guys are building at QuillAI.
Sure. So at QuillAI Network, if you had to sum up it in one sentence, I would call it the trust and security layer of Web3. And
Okay,
that's a very packed term, so let me try and unpack it for you. So we believe with our 6 years of experience in Web3 security, we have seen a lot of protocols getting hacked. The users, they're at the brink of getting scammed, and there's just a lot going on. There's nobody's doing anything about it. So QuillAI Network is about using AI models and plugging it into every step of the way in Web3 ecosystem to protect you from scams, attacks, and any kind of security vulnerabilities that can come along your way. So if there's anything like a transaction that you don't know what's the consequence of approving it, we're going to let you know. If your private keys get leaked and there's a such law, basically there's a point of you get losing funds, we can come in and step in and stop that from happening. So on a high level, that's what we're doing.
okay. Thanks for the overview. And I saw that you guys are also working on an agent network at QuillAI. So, would love to know more about that as well. Like specifically, what is it all about?
Sure, sure. So we believe in a post-agentic web world. What we think basically is that blockchain systems, they are too crude and too raw for the end users to use. It's simply not easy to use blockchain systems if you think about them. You log into
Correct.
MetaMask, you have to manage your private keys, there are seed phrases, and then different blockchain networks would have their own systems of basically transacting with the users. And
Correct.
there's no seamless way to track your funds across different things. So it's basically a really it's not so welcoming to the end users if you think about it.
Yep.
Now, why we believe in the agent thesis is that we believe these AI agents specifically can help in making the UX a lot better. Thus, they can help in onboarding the next billion users on Web3. But these agents that you see, they themselves might not be secure. They might have security vulnerabilities because the way people are seeing them is that you can basically entrust an agent with your private keys, and the agent is going to make those transactions for you. So why should you trust an agent?
Yep.
We are building a system around the identification of agents, how secure they are, and we are creating a ranking mechanism through which you can ensure that, hey, you can trust this agent, I can trust this agent. Plus, we are building a lot of agents ourselves, which can help you secure Web3 for you. So let's say there's a transaction that's going on. You need to approve the transaction. Every time you approve a transaction, there's something pops up on your wallet, but you
Yep.
don't really know what's going on. So in that case, our agent is going to read through the transaction to tell you what exactly the consequence of it would be before you go ahead and click approve. Similarly,
Okay.
let's say you have your smart contracts that are deployed on chain, and there's nothing really you can do once they're deployed on chain. The only kind of security that you get is from audits, and they do not really guarantee security. So imagine this, you deploy your smart contracts on chain and you have our SDK integrated within your smart contracts. And every transaction that goes through your dApp or your smart contracts goes through us first, where we flag it if we find it to be malicious and we stop it right there. So
Okay.
we want to bring security in every step of the way. That's what we're doing with agents.
Got it, got it. That sounds actually very good. Like you guys are enhancing the whole security scenario by collaborating blockchain with the whole agentic network. So that's actually very good to hear. So next thing, like I saw that you guys are also parallelly working on Quill Check and Quill Shield, right? So what are these two products about? Like if you can also share about them.
Sure. So QuillCheck and QuillShield are like precursors to the QuillAI network.
Okay.
I can give you a backstory as to how it started. So QuillAI network, the inception of it was actually laid down with the creation of QuillCheck, which was one of our products, where
Okay.
we saw that there was a meme season, and during the meme season, there are tons of tokens that are looking to rug pull you or hack you in any way. And there was nothing around it at the time to really help the users gauge the security of the tokens. So we build this tool which will go through the code to gather all the metrics or hidden mechanisms through which the owner could stop you from selling the token once you buy into it. That's a classic rug pull mechanism. Or do
Okay.
other things that could potentially harm you. So we took that. We took a lot of market checks. Markets tell you a lot about whether a token could be a rug pull or not, whether you have let's say you have top 10 holders that are holding around 70% or 80% of the token. That's a huge red flag
Yeah.
because they can simply ruffle you. Similarly, you take the social scores of the people who have deployed it and the teams behind it, and you see what's their identity. Why should you trust them? So QuillCheck, what it does is it takes a combination of these metrics and it provides a single dashboard for you where you can see all of them. So you can clearly see what token you're putting your money into and how secure it really is. That's about QuillCheck. We are already integrated with CoinGecko Terminal, so if you want to use that out, you can simply do it from there. Coming to Quill Shield is slightly more complex and focused more towards the security of devs. So there's no way to there's no way to guarantee that your smart contracts are not going to get hacked once they go in production. And
Okay.
the way Web3 has been is that the only source of security has been the audits, the traditional audits, and they have been out of reach for the vast majority of devs, primarily because of the cost. And they're inefficient in auditing as well because it takes a lot of time to audit a smart contract. So it was an attempt at augmenting the auditing capabilities at first. And right now we are looking at it in a way that AI can completely take over smart contract audits and do it on its
Okay.
own. So we fine-tuned an LLM over a corpus of security data. And that was our first initiative with creating a platform where you can put your smart contracts and it will find vulnerabilities for you. Now, a really interesting feature which we also added to it was the auto fix. So if let's say we find the vulnerability for you, we'll fix it for you. So we created this complete package where you can put your smart contracts, you can create them, you can test them for the security. Once you have a good enough trust score, you can go ahead and safely deploy. So that's Quill Shield. And our idea with Quill Shield was to, and both of these products is to create this comprehensive ecosystem for both the devs and the founders and the end users so that every single stakeholder in this ecosystem remains secure. So in those ways, really, these are the first two agents of our network.
Okay. Okay, got it. So I saw that these are like the two live products in your product suite, and also there are like a couple of other products in the pipeline, like policy layer, on-chain firewall, and all. So can you also give like few short insights about what these products would be doing?
Sure, I'll start with policy layer. So in Web2, you have credit cards. And if you have a credit card that gets stolen, you always have some sort of spending limits put on it. So like even if somebody tries to use it to spend too much, it's going to get blocked right away.
Yeah.
You don't have any such measures in Web3. And that was the inception of the idea of policy layer. So let's say you lose your private key. There's nothing really you can do about it. They will take out all the funds. So the idea was to build an agent which is going to, let's say you can put on some policy settings. You can say, okay, the maximum transaction limits for my account is maybe $200. Maybe people can only transact within a certain period of time. And if it happens outside of that, flag it to be malicious. So you can, the idea with this agent is that you can create certain policies like this. You can chain them together in different ways. And this will be connected to your smart wallets on different chains. Now, anytime that let's say your transactions happen that fall out of these set of rules, the agent is going to block them from happening. So
Okay.
imagine a scenario where a hacker got your keys and now they're beginning to transact. Let's say you have $1,000 on it, and I put a transaction limit of just $100. So those $100 limit, once he tries to break it, not knowingly, it's going to trigger a sequence of actions. Firstly, it's going to tell me that, hey, your account security is breached. And then automatically it's going to trigger a set of actions where to stop any further loss of funds, we transfer all the funds to a set of whitelisted addresses that you pick as user. So that's all about policy layer is about. It borrows a lot from traditional Web2 security that's used in banking systems. Now, the second one, which was on-chain firewall, is something that I already mentioned briefly when I was talking about agents, where once you deploy your smart contracts, you don't really have any security mechanisms for it. Nothing that's protecting you there. So the idea there is that anytime a transaction goes through your smart contracts, there should be some sort of check as to what the transaction is going to do through your smart contracts. If it can hack you, if it can potentially exploit a reentrancy or break an invariant. So we have trained an AI model which can detect these transactions, and it is going to detect these transactions real time, anytime, a transaction goes through which it thinks can potentially harm your smart contracts and drain it of its funds, we stop it right there and we don't let it go through. So we are sort of a relayer in that sense in front of different things, and it's more about post-deployment security, which has never existed. The only thing that you could do earlier is program your smart contracts to be upgradable and possible, but that doesn't really mitigate the problem. Now we're coming to an era where you can actually stop the transactions midway and don't let them go through, and you stop the perpetrators.
Got it, got it. So that sounds very interesting actually. And coming up towards the partnerships and collaboration side. So actually, while we were doing research about QuillAI, so we saw that you are working currently with a few companies and you did few collabs and all, like for example, the NVIDIA Inception program. So can you highlight some of these collabs which you find very useful for the whole ecosystem of QuillAI?
Sure. Actually, we have plenty of collabs with some really big partners in the Web3 ecosystem. I mean, of course, NVIDIA Inception is a big deal for us. We are really glad to be a part of this program, and we'll have access to the GPUs for training of our models. Now,
Okay.
coming into the partnerships, more in the Web3 side, we are working closely with Sentient. Now, Sentient is bringing the paradigm of OML, where anyone can own the models, and the models simply have this watermark where anyone, if they try to use it without your permission, they'll always have this watermark through which you can identify who this model was created by. Now, that's sort of like an NFT stamp for the models. Now, we are working closely with them where we will be using their models, and they're also using one of our agents, the auditing agent that we talked about previously, into their integrated autonomous system where anyone can come and talk to the agent, ask it to build a smart contract. The agent is going to use our agent as a swarm to audit it, and then it's going to deploy it before it finally goes on chain. So that's how Sentient is planning on using it. We also have partnerships with CoinGecko, as I mentioned previously. So
Yep.
CoinGecko Terminal has a first-class integration with QuillCheck. So any token that you need to check its security scores for or its market checks, you can simply do that directly from CoinGecko Terminal. We're also in talks with Base, where we are building one of the first agents on their ecosystem, and they're making use again of our auditing API and the QuillCheck API, which is for finding the security around tokens. And that's still in the plans. And we're actually launching one of our first agents, the autonomous form of agents in Autonom, which is through AltLayer, which is basically a decentralized platform for hosting your agents inside of trusted execution environments. So that
Okay.
ensures that nobody's really tampering with the code once the agent is running. So that's something that's going on pretty actively in our partnership ecosystem.
Got it, got it. So now would be also glad to know like how can community get involved within Quill AI ecosystem? Like do you guys have any bounties or any programs and stuff for community specifically?
Right, definitely. So we have plenty of ways the community can actually come in and help us. So one of the reasons why we went with the decentralized approach was primarily because of data collection. When we were building Quill Shield, one of the biggest bottlenecks for us was to find the data and useful data. And that is where the decentralized networks can scale really well in terms of how people can contribute data and you can incentivize them. So we have a huge data contribution pipeline where users can actually help make our model better by contributing security data. So in case, let's say, you have something about smart contracts and you think there's a vulnerability, you can basically send us the smart contracts with the vulnerability that you think exists, and you'll be incentivized for it if we find it out to be correct. Then you can also do simpler stuff, which is not so complex for the end users, where it's not related to vulnerabilities. If there's a website that you think is a scam or a hack, you can simply send it to us, and we'll use our internal systems to verify whether it actually is. And if we find it out to be malicious, you get rewarded. So we have those things coming up and in line. Many different mechanisms of participation will also come in where we'll use a reinforcement learning method of training our models. So basically, the human feedback will be in the loop, just like how ChatGPT gives you two prompts as its examples, like which one do you like better. So
Correct.
we'll be kind of doing the same thing with our audits and the quill check token scores, where the end users are going to say, "Hey, I like this response better." So that is going to help our systems get more and more better. We also have beta programs where the early builders on a network can start building agents, hop onto it, and they'll have access to exclusive bounties and different point systems.
Got it, got it. And now moving towards our last question, like, how do you think the whole future of like AI integrated Web3 will look like, specifically on the security perspective?
It looks very promising and exciting to me. So, if you think particularly about the security space, it has been pretty stagnant. We had Slither, but that project has been sunsetted, I would say. Like, it's not really, it's still there, it's not archived, but there's not really anything going on actively if you talk about in terms of development. But
Hmm.
Web3 as a whole has been growing pretty quickly. It's a very dynamic industry. So the approach for using AI to secure Web3 was so that we use a system which can actively adapt to different situations given how dynamic this industry is. Every time there's a new contract, there's a new vulnerability. So AI systems with specific reinforcement learning can find and uncover vulnerabilities that they were not trained on. And that is the
Okay.
essence of using AI. Static analysis tools are going to give you maybe a lot of false positives. And that is what we saw with QuillShield earlier when we were starting out with just a static analyzer and some model which can give us the recommendations over how we solve that. But then we moved on to creating our own model and fine-tuning it. So similarly, we think AI agents are firstly going to make sure that there is a lot less false positives in the findings of the vulnerabilities or any actions they take. Secondly, it's going to be a lot more dynamic and it's going to grow and evolve just like Web3 does. So that's my takeaway.
Got it, got it. So thanks, Akshat, for coming onto this podcast and sharing your views about QuillAI and the whole security scenario. So definitely, it's always great to hear from your team, and we are like closely following QuillAI from our side as well to see what new you guys are working on, specifically on the security side. So thanks for your time.
Thanks, Yash. Thanks for having me here. Really excited for what's coming.